Welcome to Nurses with Voices, the podcast where we amplify the voices of nurses everywhere. I'm your host, Dr. Lendra James, DNP RN, and through this podcast, we aim to educate, empower, and inspire nurses at every stage of their careers. Whether you're a novice nurse navigating the challenges of bedside care, an experienced clinician looking to advance in your career, or dreaming of becoming a nurse entrepreneur, Nurses with Voices is here for you. So tune in, subscribe, and let your voice be heard, because here at Nurses with Voices, every nurse has a story worth sharing, and every voice deserves to be amplified. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Nurses with Voices. Today's episode is sponsored in part by NOLA with NursePreneurs, the CRM system of your choice. So we are here today with Dr. Javicia Peterson-Cole, which I have the pleasure of calling Javicia. I'm your host, Dr. Lendra James, DNP RN, and today it's going to just be Lendra. And so today we're going to be talking with Javicia. Javicia is a nurse turned travel business owner, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Javicia is also going to be a panelist on the upcoming Health and Wealth Expo, the virtual summit, which I am super excited about, which is scheduled to take place, a 2-day event scheduled to take place on March 23rd and 24th. So make sure you guys register and join us. So Javicia, so welcome. So
Thank
why
you.
don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience? I know I just told them your name, but introduce yourself. Tell the audience who you are, what was your milestones, how you transitioned from being a nurse to being this travel business entrepreneur.
Thank you, Lendra, for that welcome. As you mentioned, I am Dr. Javicia Peterson-Cole. I I am a nurse who has transitioned in my career as a nurse from a associate degree prepared nurse to a doctorate level prepared nurse and nurse practitioner. So I am a nurse practitioner. I have been in nursing. This year makes year 27 for me. And it's been an exciting journey from where I started to where I am today as a nurse. I have always had a passion for helping people, taking care of people, and even I knew that I wanted to be a teacher or a nurse. When I finally graduated high school, I knew that I did want to go into nursing. And after that, after I graduated high school and I was on my search for a college, I had discovered that I was pregnant. And so through that journey, I still, wanted to be a nurse. That was my dream. And after my son was born that following year, he was born with some health condition. And so that pushed me even more to want to pursue my career in nursing. So while taking care of him when he was born, and after 2 months of being in the hospital post-birth and getting him home and doing all those things, it just solidified for me even more that this is where I wanted to be in life. And so I embarked upon my my nursing school journey, and here I am 27 years later with my terminal degree. And I'm proud to be called Dr. Peterson-Cole. And how I transitioned to owning my own travel business. So during that time of, school and going back to school and lifing, if you will, I had had my second child, and we traveled with him for probably from the time that he was 4 years old. We traveled with my second child, along with my older child, because he also played basketball. So both of my kids were into sports. And so we traveled all the time, going to basketball tournaments, and I was setting up, hotels for the teams to stay in, and, doing contracts with the, different venues when we were bringing, our families and things to these events. And we never traveled, my husband and I alone during the course of time. And I'm talking from the time I had my first child up until the time that I had my second, and he went off to, was preparing to go off to college. So we never took that time to travel ourselves. And so once my younger son went off to college is when I said, you know what? It's time for us to start traveling. And then when I had a friend who it was a travel advisor at that time, and she booked the trip for me. When I came back from that trip, I said to her, I said, you know what? I said, I want to do this. And she
Mhm.
said, oh, really? And I said, yeah. And so um, I got, she connected me in the industry, and that was all she wrote. I love to, um, it still allows me to help people, and kind of like nurture them and kind of develop what their ideas and their thoughts in terms of a vacation and what that could be. And so having that innate ability, um, that caring ability allowed me to want to embark upon that to help other people to, realize that they can travel and, just live life and have a good time.
I love it. I love it. I love your story and how you became your own business owner. I think, um, in particular, what really stands out to me is the fact that you mentioned that you started as an associate degree nurse and you became a mom while in school. And the reason why I bring that up is because, so many of us as nurses, we face challenges when we're in school, right? And sometimes we let that stop us and we let that be a barrier to us getting to the next stage in not only our careers, but in our lives, right? And you didn't allow that to be a barrier or a challenge for you. You allowed that to even push you even further, right? And then your son
Absolutely.
having health issues, this even drew you more into the healthcare profession. So I just love the story. And ultimately, went on to become a doctor of nursing practice. And to your point, you should be proud of, all of the milestones that you hit because a lot of people don't. And, tell me a little bit about, going through school and going through being a mom, a wife, and dealing with being an adult, going, right, a career student, having a career. Tell me a little bit about that because a lot of times people just feel like it's too much, but you pushed through and you were tell them a little bit about your education. You were like what is it, the magna cum laude? You were with everything, right? Tell me who
Yeah.
you tell the audience what you achieved. I'm trying not to say it. I want you to share it.
So I started out in nursing school. I went to Muhlenberg School of Nursing here in Plainfield, New Jersey, Union County College. So I had received my diploma in nursing and my associate degree in science. So that was my starting point. That was my stopping grounds there. And so yes, I had my oldest son who is now 32. I had my oldest son at that time, and I was a single parent. So that, that, it was a struggle, but my desire to achieve this was bigger than that struggle. I knew that I needed to provide for me and my son at that time. And while it was a struggle at that time, I knew that the end goal was my degree, and that couldn't be taken away from me. And that even though he was young, I knew that I was setting an example, and I would hope that he would see that example and that sacrifice that I made for him. So that being said, I had a good support system in my grandmother, who's actually my step grandmother. And so as far as childcare, which can be a beast,
Mhm.
I had her, after school, I had her, she would pick him up and, care for him until. So my step grandmother she was that support for me. So yeah, so she was that support person for me, so I could depend on her to get him after school. I would, pick him up from daycare, actually bring him home and leave him with her, and then I would go to school. I would go to Union County Cranford campus for my, didactic courses. And then I was going to Plainfield for, some didactic and clinical at that time. And I worked a full-time job working at Overlook Hospital as a dietary aide at that time. And so I transitioned from there until I graduated from nursing school initially. During that time that I was in nursing school, I actually left dietary and became a nursing assistant.
Mm.
I had then once I was in probably my last year of clinicals, I stopped being a nursing assistant and I transitioned to be a unit secretary. And so from there, I graduated and I returned to school for my bachelor's degree. I went to King University, and that is where I received my bachelor's degree in 2006. And at that time, by the time I graduated from there, I had now been married for um, 8 years at that time. Yeah, 8 years at that time. So I had a husband, and at that point, having a husband made things a lot easier because now,
Mhm.
I had somebody at home that was that support for me as well, and as it relates to now two children. And so my husband supported me, and he knew that I wanted to go to school, so and get that next degree. And so that wasn't an issue. He was my champion. I'd come home, I'd study and go to work and get back up and go to school and do it all over again. Sometimes I worked night shift at that time because I left when I became a nurse. I started out in oncology. And so I had left oncology because I wanted something a little more exciting, although oncology is my first love.
Mhm.
I went to critical care, and the only available option at that time was nights. So I actually worked nights for about 3 years. And in 2006, I graduated. But during that time, there were times where I would leave work in the morning and I would go to class.
Mhm.
And it was there at Keene where I graduated with the distinct honor of magna cum laude. Um, and my toughest challenge while I was in school at that time actually wasn't nursing, it was statistics. And
Oh
so,
my gosh. You know, statistics was actually one of my favorite classes.
yes, no, not for me. It was like, it was a struggle. It was a struggle. I had a partner at that time, and she and I would be in class together, like, girl, are we going to get through this? Like, what is happening here? But we did it. And she calls me Magna to this day. Um, but yeah, that's so, I did that. And then I had a desire to have my terminal degree. And at that time, when I was pursuing an additional level of nursing, I I embarked upon receiving my nurse practitioner certification. And so that at that time, your master's and nurse as a nurse practitioner, that was considered the terminal degree in nursing at that time.
Mhm.
But then during that time, they started to transition and they opened a doctorate, started to open doctorate programs. And so I said, I really want my terminal degree. I knew I didn't want to be a PhD,
Mhm.
doctorate prepared nurse, because research really, that nitty gritty, like new research wasn't for me, right? I
Mhm.
wanted to be doing something different that's more, I would be considered more of a change agent and looking at current processes and seeing how
Mhm.
we could, improve upon those things that we were just used to, right? We were just used
Mhm.
to doing and knowing, and but there's always more than one way to skin a cat. Us as nurses, we are very resourceful. If there's a way that we can kind of shortcut it but still, the outcome is still, going to be good, and as long as it's safe for our patient, there's always a way. We figure it out. And so I wanted to learn, how to look at what we currently do to kind of see how we can make it better. And also, I also knew that I wanted to teach as well. So I did start teaching. I had become adjunct faculty at Seton Hall University. And then I was faculty and clinical instructor with Walden University. And then I had become a mentor for a couple of students that were in their doctoral programs at Chamberlain and Drexel University, and Grand Canyon. So I did, I kind of feel in a sense kind of gave back
Yeah.
to the nursing profession by lending that lending myself, to be a teacher. I believe in teaching these students, the nurses today. I believe in teaching them the right way as it relates to nursing. And just one one fun fact I'll say to you, I think I'm probably one of the last people in the profession of nursing who actually does not come to work with a full set of nails on their fingers, because it was something that was ingrained in me in nursing school, that you cannot have nail polish, you cannot have manicured nails, tips and things like that. It's something that stuck with me. So till this day, if I get my nails done,
Mhm.
I'm just getting them done just because I don't typically do it, but I don't get any polish, I don't get any tips, no acrylics or anything like that, because I still believe in that old school
Right, right,
way,
right.
so to
I
speak.
I love it, and I love that you said that. And I think, and to your point, I feel like up until like a few years ago, I'm the same way. Like I just always, when I would get my nails done, they would be very, very, like my friends would call me like plain Jane, you know. And I think up until a few years ago is when I really started getting. I only think I did tips maybe recently, but like I would do like the gel and the dip powder, and just only recently in recent years. Like I haven't
Mhm.
really done that like throughout the career. So that's so funny because to your point, when we think, and I've been a nurse over 20 years myself, right? So to your point, you just didn't do that. Like it's just something that it stayed in, you didn't do it. So, I mean, no judgment to Gen Zs and to the to
Not at
everyone else.
all.
Listen, you just didn't do it. It's so funny. I can remember being on my first day, one of my first days of orientation, right? Brand new nurse. And one of the first things my preceptor said to me is like, "Oh, are you going to put your hair up?" And I ran and I put my hair up in a ponytail because
Absolutely.
that's what we did, right?
Because that's what
So
we
that's
did.
so
And
funny that you
yeah, it
mentioned
was
that. It's
taboo.
so funny.
That was taboo to have your hair down and your nails done.
You are not supposed to see those nails. Like if you can lift your hand up, you are not supposed to see nails sticking up. That's right. I see it.
Absolutely.
That's so funny. So I mean, I
Absolutely.
think, everything that you went through has just been amazing. So one question it's a burning question that I have to ask you as it relates to, everything you've done in your profession has been great, right? So, you've worked your way up and climbed the ladder, received your terminal degree, which is amazing. Throughout your career, would you say that there has been challenges within your career or struggles that you had to face during your career? And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I would say um, one of the bigger challenges, I'm going to say probably two challenges that I feel like I faced. One is racism. That's just, it's sad to say, but it's like it's par for the course, right? It's a given, um, which is sad. I face that in terms of patient care. I've had a patient who was terminal, and I am there every day. I'm treating this patient. Um, and the person said to my colleague that morning that she did not want this derogatory word to be taken care of her.
Mhm.
And so, we had to deal with that at that time. And okay, my colleague told me, and I mean, I overheard the individual. And so I went on and, we changed assignment, if you will. I was working outpatient, and the unfortunately at that time the patient had developed a reaction to the chemo.
Mhm.
And my colleague was not equipped with the skills to jump in and help her in that emergent situation.
Mhm.
So it was me that had
Mhm.
to come to the rescue of this individual. And when the individual, when she came out of her anaphylactic reaction,
Mhm.
because she had anaphylaxis, and we coded her. And when we achieved ROSC, I was the person who was standing over her.
Mhm.
And she looked at me when she was able to speak, and she said, "I'm sorry." And she said, "Thank you." And it's fine. I still didn't, after that, I still did not continue to tend to her. I went on about my business with my other patient, and I let my colleague come on over and take over. Um, and then another barrier that I faced was just within my own community of colleagues.
Mhm.
And the I kind of felt like my counterparts who were not of the same race were not very supportive.
Mhm.
I always tried to do what was right, by my staff at the time when I was in leadership. And this was very early on in my career. And I had one of my colleagues say to me, "You're not going to make it very far if you think that with this, goody goody attitude that you have." And I said,
And what does
oh,
that mean?
I,
Right,
I, you know what? I didn't even ask her, and I
right,
didn't even care.
right.
Um, because at that time, again, I was new to leadership and I wasn't interested in cutting corners. And
Mhm,
if there was something that either I didn't know, or if it was something that I didn't necessarily believe in, or if I had an opinion about it, I either asked the question or I gave my opinion and I gave the reason why I felt the way I felt. And if I stood on something, I stood on it. I didn't cower down to, oh, well, this is what they're telling me, or whatever.
mhm,
And so that was my first challenge as a leader that I had gotten from my colleagues. And I left leadership at a point. It was short term, probably about a year and a half, and went just straight clinical. And I had remained clinical until 2018 when I took a leadership role. And at that time, I was put through the ringer
mhm,
to actually get that position.
mhm,
I had to take intelligence tests, and oh, you need to, go meet up with the different leaders in the various departments that you are going to be working with, and go have coffee and talk to them about your life and be personable. And I felt at that
mhm.
time that those were a lot of hoops to
Right,
jump
right.
to to advance,
Mhm,
and to become a leader in that particular institution. And I would always get tagged with this, oh, she never smiles, she doesn't talk, she's unapproachable. When in fact, I don't feel like I have to smile every second of every day.
mhm,
Okay, because I walk down the hall, I see people not smiling, and I don't say anything about it at all. It doesn't bother me that they're not smiling. I speak, I follow your rules, your 5 and 10. Okay. When you're within 10 feet of someone, you smile. When you're within five, you speak. I do that. I do that. But I can't say that everybody does that in that organization.
right.
Okay. And so it was a lot. It was a lot. And the start of that leadership role in 2018 was actually the end of my leadership role in 2023.
Mhm,
Um, because I just, I it had come full circle from then till then, 5 years later. And I had had enough. I had had enough, and I felt,
It
that
just
it was
goes to
time.
show you that what still goes on in healthcare, and I think it's important. I thank you for sharing that. And I think it's important that these type of stories are shared so that we see what still actually still occurs in
Mhm.
healthcare, even with all of our certifications, our degrees. There are certain platforms that we still have to fight for, and through with your strength you did it. So you should be proud of yourself. You definitely should be proud of yourself. And look what you did. You start and during this whole process, all of this you're going through, you started a vacation travel business. So tell me a little bit about this. So so this is the fun part. So we got that, you travel throughout your throughout your career, throughout your time with your kids, and then you got to a point where you like, I like this because I love travel. Did you look at it as a form of how can I say, like, self-care or wellness, like being able to do something different than what you were dealing with as a nurse? right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, when I say to you that I traveled with my son, we didn't travel anywhere exotic. We were up and down the road in our car, driving to DC, driving to Maryland, Washington, Virginia. That's where we were going. We were
Right.
not vacationing. And so when that time came, I said to my husband, it's time for us now, right? And
Mhm.
so we took that one trip. And then I said, you know what? I said, I can do this. I can start a travel business. Like I said, I asked my friend, like, tell me what this is about. How can I go about what kind of training do I need to do or whatever? And she set me up with the right people, and I went full speed ahead. And yes, it is a form for me. Um, as a travel advisor, I am busy, right? But it's a different kind of busy. I
Mhm.
feel a great satisfaction when my clients return from a trip and they write a review and say that, how I took my time with them, how I was patient with them, how I presented everything that they needed. I culturated a trip for them that they couldn't otherwise do on their own. I handled the details right down, from the beginning, right down to the end. They didn't, if there was a question that they had that I didn't already answer, they could answer it. I was timely in responding, to any of their questions. I tended to their needs. And that made me feel good to hear that I'm appreciated by those clients, because in healthcare, you don't always you hear a lot of bad, right? People will make a complaint about something, and sometimes in our minds, right, it's the most trivial thing, but to that
Mhm.
person, it's grandiose, right? And
Mhm.
so we often don't get that recognition and that show of appreciation for the time we spent with that patient or that family. And
Right.
so with travel, J. Cole Vacations LLC gives me solace
Mhm.
in knowing that I am an innate nurturer. I
Right.
am a caring individual. I care about what product I'm putting out. Um, and I like working with people. I like educating people. And I kind of combine, when I say educating, whether it's educating students,
Mhm.
future nurses, whether it's educating my patients, whether it's educating my travel clients on the destinations and, why you should go here or you shouldn't go here at this time of year, or why it's the best time to go here during this time of year, or, you need to make sure you have this before you travel, or, so forth and so on. I'm always positioning myself where I can be of help and be of service and providing more information, if you will, to the people that I deal with. And I love it. I love it.
That actually leads me to my next question. When you talk about experiences, like what type of vacation experiences, and I think you kind of touched on this, does your company, does J. Cole Vacations offer, and what sets you apart from other travel companies in the industry?
So I can curate, a trip anywhere from, your Caribbean, your cruise, your cruise travel. I book overseas, travels European, Mediterranean, so your Europe, Italy, Greece. Dubai. If you want to go, I can make it happen for you. And I help you to plan, if there's something, a specific destination is known for X, I make sure that I provide you with the necessary information, or I will help you to get that particular thing booked so that you can have that on your itinerary when you're going to travel. Um, and what sets me apart, and I'm glad you asked that question because we can all go online, right, and book a trip. And so there are some fallacies out there that, oh, if I use a travel advisor or a travel agent, it's going to cost me more money out of pocket than if I went and found this Groupon, and this Groupon is offering me a trip for $700, but this travel agent is telling me that it's $1,100. So I want to save that $400 and go with the Groupon. Well, when you're doing that, you never know. It is a cheaper price, obviously, but you don't get that same attention, the same attention to detail. Sometimes that Groupon is not going to have your transportation to and from, the airport, included in that rate. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to get from this place to that place. If you're fine with calling an Uber, or if you're fine with, whatever is at the airport or whatever for you to get to your next destination, that's fine. You can do that. But a travel advisor is going to make sure that all of that is curated in your trip, one-stop shop, right? Also, when you're dealing with these online travel agencies, if you will, your Cheap Caribbean and so forth and so on, they're just that. They're an online agency. You do not get that one-on-one customer service. If you're in destination and you have an issue, you can't call them, but you can call me if you have an issue, right? That can't be resolved by you calling the emergency number that you are equipped with, because there's always an emergency number available to my clients in their travel documents when they're in destination to call for that particular area or whatever to have things fixed. In addition to them being right on site to talk to the actual resort or whatever if they're having an issue. But they can also pick up the phone and call me, at least make me aware, because I can then at that point, if need be, I can try to intervene and to assist, in a way. And when you're dealing with those online agencies, whether you travel or not, those representatives that you're talking to, or those people that are behind the computer when you're online, they're getting paid. They're getting paid to do their job. But if you're working with a travel advisor, if you don't travel, I don't get paid. If I'm doing all of this for you, I am servicing your needs. If you are making your payments on your trip and it's 2 months, 3 months, and you decide, oh, I have to cancel. Well, I'm not going to get paid for all of that work that I put in to that trip. So you're getting a service, and you're supporting a small business owner, as opposed to supporting someone in a business that is already getting a paycheck.
Gotcha.
You're supporting Cheap Caribbean. You're supporting whatever other, conglomerate that there is behind all of those online agencies. And it's probably one person that's behind all of those online agencies. It's about 1 to 2 people. So you're just padding their pockets, if you will. But you're getting a service from me, from J. Cole Vacations.
Right. I love it. I love it, especially the part about supporting small businesses. And you're right, because we'll go with the other companies who you're patting the billionaire pockets and and we're trying to get there. So
Right.
You're right. How about when in with a healthcare background, how do you prioritize like health and safety when it comes to your clients, especially like in today's global environment?
So, we all know, right? COVID was a huge thing, right?
Hmm.
So, that turned the industry, the travel industry, totally upside down, right?
Hmm.
So, as it relates to safety and travel, um, again, it goes back to me educating.
Hmm.
Okay, so if there's a travel advisory or something, that is going on, and I know my clients are going there, or my clients are calling me, asking me, well, what do you think, and so forth and so on. I have contacts in the industry, and we receive information throughout our industry, our colleagues and our other travel travel industry folks that have, front hand information, right? And so they provide that to us. I research and I give my clients the information, and not in a panicked manner, right?
Hmm.
I give them the information because I have to provide them with the information. Now, what they do with that information, if they decide that, they don't want to continue on, or they do want to continue on despite, knowing what's going on, that's totally up to them. But at least they know that I've informed them of, what it is. um if, my clients, if I know that they're going to a destination like, certain parts of Africa where they need different shots, or they might need to take malaria drugs and things like that prior to, I let them know. Now, as a healthcare provider, right, I have to separate the two, right? I have to be on one side of the fence, and I'm advising them as a travel advisor that this is what this is what you're going to need to be able to travel to this country. I cannot prescribe, I'm not prescribing it for you, or anything like that, but this is what you need to do. You need to seek out, your healthcare provider, and you need to get this before you get there. If it's destinations, for the most part, most destinations have lifted the COVID restrictions,
Hmm.
in terms of, requiring a vaccination or requiring proof of vaccination. Um, but I advise my clients, I do ask the question when they're initially filling out their inquiry forms for travel. I do ask, have you been vaccinated? Are you partially vaccinated, or you don't have plans to get vaccinated? Just so that I know, so that when I'm looking for trips, right, I can make sure that I'm not offering them something that I know that they can't go to because they don't have they don't have this COVID vaccination, or they don't have proof of their COVID. Um, just like if, it's the same as I have to ask about a passport. Do you
Right,
have a passport?
right,
I'm not going to offer you destinations that I know you can't get there if you don't have a passport.
right,
So that's how I handle that. And those online folks, they don't ask those questions.
right. You're right. So, what would you say to the, nurses who may be thinking of a career shift into doing travel as a, as a business, as a, into career shift into entrepreneurship and considering to be opening their travel business? What would you say?
Um, as a travel business owner, if they're interested in doing that, I would say that take your time, research the different hosts that are out there, because I do belong to a host, but I have my own business. My business is my business, but I do have a host that allows me to utilize their credentials, if you will, to have the relationships with the various suppliers. But my business is my business. I run it. Um, so I would, say to them, if you're interested in going into the travel industry, to do your research on the host. And then also, once you've established your host and established your business, to take it one day and one step at a time, because it is a lot of information to learn, purely from a destination standpoint. Um, and there's so many different areas that you can focus on, your niche, if you will. So whether it's, you only want to focus on all inclusives in the Caribbean only, or you only want to focus on cruising,
Mhm.
um, figure out, figure out what your audience is, and where you think you might want to put most of your energy. I would say that is the biggest, um, the biggest recommendation that I can give to somebody that is interested in embarking upon travel. And just in entrepreneurship in general, um, again, I would say take your time, figure out what it is that you want to do and what you have to offer, in
Mhm. Mhm.
terms of entrepreneurship. Because, a lot of us are becoming our own, business owners, small business owners.
Mhm.
And so you ask that question of, what sets you aside from somebody else. And so, yeah, you might want to be an entrepreneur and you might want to do the exact same thing that, Dr. Lendra James is doing. But what additional, what is going to set you apart from Dr. Lendra James, or what is going to bring that audience to you that maybe you think it it may not bring it to, Dr. James. So I would say that those would be my points,
I what
to give.
what I'm hearing is mentorship,
Mhm,
like make sure that they do their research. And sometimes in doing your research, you might need guidance in
mhm,
starting your own business. And a mentorship is always, I'm big on mentorship. Like mentorship is always like a good way to go. We should
mhm.
talk about doing some type of mentorship program to show people who may be interested in starting the vacation or hospitality sector, right? It's going into that sector. It's always something to consider. But definitely, seeking mentorship is something that I always advise, and I appreciate your advice. I think one last question that I want to ask, where do you see JCO Vacation? Like, what is your goal? Like, where do you aspire to be with the business? Where do you see it going?
Well, I would hope that when I am able to retire from this nursing career of mine that I have embarked upon, um, I would hope that my travel business is positioned in a way that it will be able to sustain
Right.
me, in those latter years. So yeah, I hope the J. Cole vacations will be around and it could be my retirement, just solely dedicated to travel rather than on a part-time basis.
I hear you. I love it. And in full disclosure, J. Cole Vacation actually assisted with my trip to Dubai, and we had a fabulous time. So, full disclosure, nurses supporting nurses, and I love it. So, there you have it, guys. There's your episode today. On today's episode with Nurses with Voices, thank you so much for coming on today. Until next time, make sure you guys stay educated, stay empowered, and stay inspired. And I will see you in the next episode. And I hope to see you at the Health and Wealth Expo Virtual Summit on March 23rd and 24th. See you next time, guys.